you to your phone where you're going to tap the machines later. Instead, I want to spend a little bit of time thinking about our mindset towards our finances and the principles that we can learn from this passage in 1 Corinthians. And so this evening, I want to talk about the truth that we get to hold on to when we release our finances. So I wonder, have you ever got anything for free that you were supposed to pay for? Anyone ever got anything for free that you were supposed to pay for? I don't mean nick it. I don't mean a confession that you stole it. I mean, did anyone actually ever get anything? Raise your hand if you actually got something for free that you were supposed to pay for. Wow, cool. I want to hear your stories later. Sorry that we don't have time for all those stories. I can think of 2 occasions where I got something for free, or a family member got something for free that we were supposed to pay for. So my husband, Ben, he found a really great deal on eBay. Well, he told me it was. I can not for this. But he found a really great deal for a remote-control droid from Star Wars on eBay. This was before we had kids. Our kids have now destroyed that droid, but never mind. And it was, if we bought it new, it was worth over £100. But he got this really great deal. It was supposed to be new and in its box and all that stuff. And he got this really great deal on eBay. He was raving about it. And then due to a technicality, when it actually arrived, eBay ended up refunding him. I think there was some fault with the packaging or something like completely irrelevant to what he actually purchased. But because of the technicality, he ended up with this droid for free. And honestly, for like the next 2 years, that's all he talked about whenever we talked about things that like we spent our money on. And then the only other time I remember getting something for free that we were supposed to pay for was when my daughter was born. It was like COVID lockdowns, and we ordered some clothes online for her, and basically they just didn't arrive. And so I chased the company, and they said, look, we'll refund you. They've still not arrived a few weeks later. If the clothes do arrive, keep them. Literally the next day they arrived, so we got to keep all these clothes that we had ordered. And basically, I think, now I'm 31, I reckon I must have made over like a couple of thousand transactions, like over the last, I don't know, like 15, 16 years. And only 2 times can I think of times where I got something that was worth value for free. So one thing that we're all aware of is that money doesn't just appear. As a saying goes, money doesn't grow on trees. Although I did have one friend at uni who genuinely thought that their overdraft was free money. They got a bit of a shock when they found out that it wasn't. I'm aware that when we talk about finances, we'll come from different places and have different experiences. Some of us have been earning money for a while. Some of us are students. Some of us might not have ever had a job. Some of us are naturally spenders. Some of us are naturally savers. We have different financial incomings and outgoings. But the society in which we live, we think about finances as an exchange between what we input and the output that we receive. We're hardwired as human beings to shape our thinking through an input to output mentality. We work to earn money. That money in turn is what we use to buy the things we need. Well, that's the theory anyway. Paul's writing into a context where people probably got paid for their day's work. They probably got paid at the end of the day. Occasionally, they might get paid at the end of the week. Or if they had made something to sell, they would only receive money by supply and demand. So if no one bought their stuff that day, they didn't have any money. There wasn't a steady income necessarily for people of Paul's day and age. If they were ill, they probably didn't get sick pay. If they couldn't work because they needed to care for a loved one, then they probably didn't get any pay. If they were ill themselves, and it meant that they were injured in a way that meant they couldn't work, then they were probably left to beg. If the weather affected their work, they didn't get paid. Therefore, most people, on hearing the instructions of this letter, were having to apply what was being said to what we might describe as a financially unstable situation. Most didn't have a steady stream of income or a guarantee of work throughout the year. To the Corinthian church, that's just how work and wages worked. That was just life. And it's worth knowing that this letter, it's being written in advance of Paul coming to visit. So maybe a helpful way to think about it is it's like Paul dropping a message into that holiday group chat about some details for the trip, as well as a countdown reminder that in 196 days he was coming. Paul is writing some instructions, some detail to help shape the church's approach to finance in advance of his visit, so that basically when he's there, he doesn't have to deal with it. It should have been done in advance. And in short, I think there are 3 things he encourages the church to do. He says, give regularly, give proportionally, and give to something bigger than just you. These are really helpful principles, and we actually see those principles echoed throughout Scripture. But in and of themselves, taken just like that, might feel a little bit like a tax. We have an input to output mentality. And so it might be appropriate to say, well, if we give regularly and proportionally and to something bigger than just ourselves, what do we get? If the answer is we get something back, then the next obvious question, to me at least, would be, is it worth what I'm putting in? And if we're not getting anything back, then I think it raises 2 questions. Either, do I even need to give at all if we're not getting anything back? Or do I need to do it out of duty? If we think about releasing our finances with an input to output mentality, then giving to the work of the church becomes one of many places competing for our finances. And it can often feel like a tax that we ought to pay. Not one that we have to, but maybe one that we think we ought to pay. I got my first job when I was 17, and at the time, my dad worked for a bank and my mum worked for a church. And so as you might imagine, conversations about giving to the church occurred in my household. We had conversations about tithing, and that's an idea from the Bible about giving 10% of what you earn. That's like giving proportionally from your income towards the work of the church. And so I'd got a hold of this idea from quite a young age that releasing my finances, giving regularly and proportionally to the church, was one of the ways I learned to live more like Jesus. It was, to me at least, a natural part of what it meant to be a disciple. So right from the beginning of my working life, I set myself up that when my wage came into my bank account, a proportion of that I gave straight to church. I happened to let it go out on the same day, only because I knew if I didn't, I'd just spend it myself. And my approach to giving like that became like a discipleship tax. That's how I saw it. Now, I am so grateful that my parents taught to me about giving from a really young age, because right now I'm seeing the fruitfulness of those conversations. But I was viewing my finances with an input to output mentality. I viewed what I coined as my discipleship tax as like brownie points with God. It was a way that I thought I was being a good Christian. And whilst those principles were great, I totally missed the heart of God for me and my finances. So here's the life-giving, freedom-enhancing joy that I want to share with you tonight. God is not interested in your money. He's interested in you. He has come in the person of Jesus to set us free from our input to output mentality and restore to us the responsibility of stewardship. I want to invite you, if you've got a Bible near you, we're going to turn to Genesis chapter 1, which is, funnily enough, right at the beginning of the Bible. It will be on as soon as you've skipped past like the index and the contents page. Oh no, my mascot's fallen down. So at Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to the end of that chapter, and it says this. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. You see, in creation, God gave us responsibility to take care of, to look after, to take responsibility to steward everything he has made and given to us as gift. And Jesus restored to us that responsibility to steward. On the cross, Jesus died a death that he didn't deserve, to make a way for us to have something that only Jesus could obtain, the right to be called children of God. He gave us the greatest gift in laying down his life so that we can know freedom. He invites us to choose in every way of our thinking to lay down our input to output mentality and instead pick up our responsibility to steward. Because life with God is a gift that we can't earn. Life with God is a gift that we can't work for. Life with God is a gift that we're not entitled to. It's one that he has freely given. And so you might not feel like it right now, but your life is a gift. The place you find yourself during the week is a gift. The relationships you have are a gift. The amount of money you earn is a gift. The possessions you own are a gift. The hobbies you enjoy are a gift. The creation you see around you is a gift. Are you stewarding these gifts well? Or do you think you need to work for them, earn them? Do you have an input to output exchange in your mind when you think about them? So when we think about releasing our finances with a stewardship mentality, where we recognize that all we have is God's, that he has graciously given to us to steward as a gift, suddenly freedom is released all over the place. You probably wondered why I had this little mascot. This is Copper 2.0. My daughter has stolen him, but I took him back this evening. This is Copper 2.0. Copper 1.0 was my year 2 class toy. And you got to take him home. You got to take it in turns in your class to take home the class toy. I hope my school wasn't the only one that did that. It was a great delight. I'm dreading it as a parent, but as a kid, it was great. And so I took him to my football game. We watched Saturday morning TV. We went to church. I think he met my wider family. He loved it. I loved it. It was great. And I recorded it all in this book that I sent back with me on Monday morning to my class. And I had to return him. I had to give him back. But I loved my weekend with him. And so my Christmas present of year 2 was Copper 2.0 because I had loved version 1 so much. And so he was given to me as a Christmas present. I took him everywhere. And occasionally, I was asked to share him with my 3-year-old sister or with friends when they came round. And honestly, this was the thing I held on to the most tightly. This is the thing I hid so that my friends couldn't find and ask to play with. This is the thing that I would probably hit my sister for if she took it. You have to ask her. You might see her around sometime. The answer, if someone said, can I use Copper, can I borrow him, can I play with him, was absolutely not. He's mine. But when I had to give Copper 1.0 to the next child in my class, I was sad, but I knew I had to return him because the plan was never for me to keep him. He was a gift for a weekend that everyone else also got to enjoy. And yet, when I was given this one and asked to share what was mine, I would put up the biggest fight. I get that I was a kid and that sharing is hard, but do you know what? Sharing doesn't actually get that much easier as an adult. In fact, as I was leaving the house today, my daughter said, "Are you going to let other people hold Copper?" I said, "No." She said, "Mummy, it's okay, you can share." And I said, "Oh yeah, that's a good point." Sharing, even as adults, is hard. All too often, I find myself holding increasingly tightly because I've worked hard, or I don't have enough, or there are more urgent things that my finances need to go towards. Whilst the practices that I put in place over 14 years ago are much the same as the ones I still practice now, I've learned to choose to steward well and to choose, when it creeps in, to let go of an input to output mentality. And it has brought freedom in ways I didn't think was possible. Living knowing all of this, all that you look at, all that you own, all that you could say, this belongs to me. Living like that is a gift allows us to live in the grace of all Jesus has won for us. When we hold on to the truth that we're given responsibility to steward, it alters our mentality to releasing finances. So when we look again at Paul's encouragement for the church in 1 Corinthians 16 to give regularly, give proportionally, and give to something bigger than just you, it doesn't just release finances, it releases us. Because finances given regularly, in financially uncertain times and in the certain times, releases us from the burden of self-sufficiency. Finances given proportionally release us from the temptation of excess living. Finances given for something bigger than just ourselves releases us from isolated, independent living. Culture around us tells us to be self-sufficient, tells us to live excessively, strive for independence, to live our lives governed by an input to output mentality. The harder you work, the better the outcome should be. But the truth found in the person of Jesus is this: that which God has given as gift, he has given us responsibility to steward. And that truth in the area of our finances brings freedom. There's a slide that's going to come up on the screen. And these are just a few things that you might want to think about, might help you to reflect about what this might mean for you. So are you viewing giving as some type of discipleship tax? And what freedom does God want to bring to your approach of finances? If you've never given before, you might want to consider, what could you start giving? If you've given every now and then, could you set up a standing order? Do you even know how to do that here? There's some little cards that go around in our giving buckets that you could take out, and it will give you more information about that. If you give regularly, could you give proportionally to your income? Or what could you give generously that goes beyond your regular and proportional giving? God is in the business of wanting just you. But when we release our finances, we find freedom. Let's pray. Can I invite you to stand where you are?
We're just going to spend some time just waiting on God, asking to be filled again with His Spirit. So perhaps you want to just put your hands out as we do that, as we receive from God again. So come, Holy Spirit. Come now and fill each one of us here. More of you.